My disease wants me alone, and then it wants to kill me. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my little series on, this is Oliver, little series on the 12 steps of recovery. Oliver needs the 12 steps. Oh, while you're here, go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. All my videos in one place. So you can give that link to family members who are struggling, or you can look at it who are struggling, and it really helps me continue to make these videos. It would mean a lot if you go and subscribe. The link will be up there if you're on Instagram, down there if you're on Facebook. Also, I've got a group, addiction recovery group on Facebook called Recover from Addiction with Stephen Hilton. That's me. Go and have a look at that. Join it if you're struggling. This week, my disease wants me alone, and then it wants to kill me. So I feel like addicts are naturally, we want to isolate. This part of the disease of alcoholism is to pull ourselves away from people and not really interact. I know I really struggle with that. I find it hard to connect to people, apart from Oliver. And I always have been like that from like a kid, from very young. I've always been in fear, and I've always never known how to live. And I always felt like everyone else had a rule book on how to live life, but I didn't get that rule book. So it was very difficult. I found like just life as difficult and weird. So it's hard to fit in. And because of that, I never really wanted to hang out with anyone, never really wanted to sort of connect with people. It's part of the addiction disease to want to isolate from people. But what happens is addiction wants you to isolate, because if you're in isolation, your brain can have free reign to tell you all kinds of shit, and you can't run it past anyone, can you? You can't go, hey, this idea I've got, is this crazy? It's easy for you to see if someone's beating themselves up. It's way easier for you to see if someone's beating themselves up than for you to see you're beating yourself up. So it's valuable to have people who can look at what you're doing and say, you're being self-destructive. My brain will never tell me I'm being self-destructive. My brain will go, this is all true what I'm telling you. In some ways, the opposite of addiction is community. The opposite of addiction is being together with other people. But for an addict personality, it's the hardest thing to do, isn't it? I really struggle with it. The last thing you want to do when you're feeling really in your addiction is to talk to anyone. And it's contrary action. One of the things about this program that I love, the concept that I was taught early on and normally works, is called contrary action. Whatever we feel like doing, if we do the opposite as an addict, that's the thing you really need to do. You know, when you're depressed and you don't want to go outside, but if you go outside, you get less depressed. That's contrary action. I want to make a whole video on contrary action because it's been super powerful to me in my recovery. The disease wants you alone, so it draws you away from community, because remember, community is the opposite of addiction. That's why things like the Facebook group are really good, because there everyone's in a community. There's thousands of people there giving advice, asking questions, getting support. So it's good to be in a community. The Facebook group is great. Go and join it if you're struggling, or if you know someone that's struggling, or if you love someone that's struggling. It is a community. It's the opposite of addiction. Recover from Addiction with Stephen Hilton. That's me. Anyway, so the first half is it wants me alone. The second half is my disease wants to kill me. What do you do when you're isolating as an addict? You use. I used to find that if I was hanging out with people, I couldn't use as much as I wanted to. I couldn't drink as much as I wanted to. Did you find that? Like, you're embarrassed to use, you really want to really go for it, because as addicts, we really go for it. We don't drink and use socially, do we? So if we're in a social using and drinking situation, it's hard to hold it down and be normal. You really want everyone to leave, or I used to want everyone to leave so I could really start using. I was like, what are you doing? Everyone's not using fast enough for me. So when you're taken out of people being able to witness your behavior, it's very easy to kill yourself with using. And that's how the disease wants to kill you. It's an important concept, and it's an easy one to remember. My disease wants me alone, and it wants to kill me. So whenever I feel like I don't want to go to a meeting, or I don't want to hang out with anyone in recovery, or I don't want to stay behind after a meeting, which is hardly ever, or I don't want to call back another alcoholic that's called me, which happens a lot. Like, I had a guy reach out to me recently who I love, but I just can't call him back. I don't want to call him back. It's so weird. But that's the addiction going, isolate, isolate. So isolation is very, very dangerous for an addict. And if you're isolating, go to a Zoom meeting, join the Facebook group, talk to another alcoholic, it's important, because the next stage from isolating is it wants to kill you. It's good to be aware of that. It sounds heavy, but it's good to be aware of it. Just don't isolate. Don't be on your own. Be a part of a community. I love you guys. You can be part of my community. Me speaking to you is like being part of a community. It's difficult now because everything's virtual, and that's why I set up the Facebook group. We're all communicating virtually and being a part of a virtual community. So Zoom meetings are great. The telephone's great. And hopefully soon the pandemic will it be over? Hopefully it'll be over. And then we can go to meetings again, hang out in real life. Anyway, I love you guys. If you're struggling, know that you're not alone. And next week, let's talk about something else. I don't know, contrary-action, ego. What do you think? What do you want me to talk about next? Write it in the comments, because I could do with some ideas. I've got a lot of ideas, but I want to know what you most want to hear about. So if you write it in the comments, and if you see someone write in what you wanted to write, just like it, and I'll go through and I'll be like, oh, that's the most liked one. That's what I'll do next week. So you guys tell me what you want to hear about. Love you. Bye.